Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Get this
this morning are giving you an opportunity really to be a leader. You want your voice to be heard, your opinion to be heard, and we're talking about all throughout Georgia to really make a change. This is what you need to tune into. Here with us are Melvin Coleman and Michelle Glover with the Atlanta Black Chambers. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you
for having us. Okay. So first, let's just talk about what is the Black Chamber.
So we're an organization of entrepreneurs based here in Atlanta, but our membership extends or expands across the world, actually, because Atlanta is an international city.
Okay.
So we support and assist entrepreneurs to take their business endeavors to that next level.
Okay.
You know anything about Atlanta, the entrepreneur population is very significant. In fact, the entrepreneur experience is a big part of the ATL experience. So the demand for what we offer is huge because of the city of Atlanta.
And there really are a lot of people who try to be business owners here in our city, which is really cool. So why is it important for them to get involved?
Well, entrepreneurs, business owners, they need a trusted, reliable source for information, access to resources, exposure for their business, exposure for their brand. And so to be connected to the Atlanta Black Chambers is to be in the know. You don't want to miss on a wonderful program or some resources that have been made available. And so when you are connected to the chamber, you find out consistently all the information that you need to know. And this is very important.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining the Power Hour. Welcome, everyone. My name is Ricardo Berrís. I'm the chairman for the Global Opportunities Committee. It's Wednesday. It's a beautiful day, and we are really excited to have a very, very interesting discussion that I'm particularly interested in, and I know you are, so thanks for jumping in. Before we get started, we're going to do some housekeeping real quick. Please keep your microphone on mute at all times. We'll be taking some of your questions. If you do have questions at the very end of the conversation, you can put the questions in the chat. You can feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, tell us what you do, allow folks to be able to get in touch with you. This is a recording, so we'll also be posting this on our YouTube channel, so feel free to follow us there on the YouTube channel as well. And as we'll also be having a regular spotlight, so if you are a GOC member and you'd like to be spotlighted, please feel free to reach out in the chat. If we don't have any GOC member and you're ABC member and you want to be spotlighted, do the same as well. Reach out to me in the chat and we'll bring you up on stage to introduce yourself and tell us what you're into. And finally, the other thing is that we do have a poll, so we'll be dropping the poll of the week shortly. So get ready to see the to take the poll. We'd love to get your temperature on a few things here. Just pretty much one question. So we're gonna get right in. I do have my beautiful co-host, and she's brought a beautiful guest. Everybody and everything is beautiful today. It's an awesome day. Dr. Dawn Sizemore. Many of you know her. Some of you may have just be seeing her for the first time. Welcome, Doc. We're family. We're familiar. You're a part of the GOC. Please, for those folks who don't know who you are, why don't you tell them a little bit about who you are and tell them who we actually have before we bring up our guest.
Absolutely. Good day, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Always a good time when I'm able to join anything involving GOC. I am Dr. Dawn Sizemore. I'm actually the education sector lead for GOC. I've been a member of GOC for almost 4 years. The time flies when you're having fun. And also a member of the Atlanta Black Chambers. I'm the founder and the CEO of Ife, which is an innovative ed tech solutions firm. We specialize in custom curriculum and digital learning design, and just an advocate of all things supporting entrepreneurs and teaching, learning, professional development. I am completely elated this morning that my friend, okay, I'm not even going to bother with her professional background because she can tell you all that. I just want to talk about her as my friend and how much both her and Ricardo actually are I both consider both of them family and friends. They've been doing this for way longer than I have, international business, negotiation. I'm just about 6 years into the entrepreneurship journey. And it's people like them, community, family, people that you can develop relationships with, that you can actually learn from and actually just make the journey a little bit easier. Because some days it can be very, very tough, but I learned so much watching them and just speaking with them. And I'm just so thankful to be able to facilitate this conversation with Dr. Ife Badejo and also Ricardo Berrís. And we're just going to have a really great time this morning and drop some jewels on you all about international negotiation and cultural competency. So without further ado, Ife, my love, would you go ahead and tell these beautiful guests a little bit about yourself, please?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ife Badejo, and I hail from the beautiful island of St. Martin. Obviously, my name is Yoruba for my Nigerian family in the house. I have deep roots there as well. And so I'm very excited to be here. Dawn, thank you so much, Dr. Dawn. Thank you so much for that incredible introduction. You're my sister friend. And so we talk a lot about different things that are very important for the dynamics of, business and moving forward. A little bit about me and what I do. My name is Ife, like I said, and my business is called Islandpreneur International. We help island-based entrepreneurs to innovate, scale, and thrive globally. And so we do a lot of work connecting the right kinds of people to do so, doing different kinds of projects within the region and around the world. And so I am very excited to have the conversation here today. I could go on and on about all of that, but I actually want to give a whole lot of value. So it's not so much about who I am, but how I can provide value today to this conversation.
So let's ease into this. Just giving us a brief intro into your experience with cross-cultural communication and international negotiation. Just give us a little tidbit of your experience. What does that even mean to you?
Okay, so let me start here. And I'm not sure if everyone can see me. I see you on my screen, Dawn, so I'm not sure if it's switching out.
We can see you.
Okay, perfect. So let me start here. I am blessed to have been born in a very global family. My father is Nigerian. My mother is an island woman that was born on one island and grew up on another island. Both of them went to Europe to study. My dad studied in Spain. My mom studied in Belgium and the Netherlands. I have an older brother that lives in Spain. My youngest sister is in Miami. I am global. Like literally, I don't know how not to be global. So I have a little bit of an advantage in that regard. That being said, I would not have been able to connect with you, Dawn, for example, if I did not build relationships in Atlanta with Rice, the Russell Innovation Center of Entrepreneurship at the time. And if I did not build a relationship with the US State Department through the US mission to the Dutch Caribbean, right? So it's important to have different kinds of relationships. I always say that relationships is the true currency. And talking about negotiations and international awareness and cultural awareness, the first place you have to start is with you and understanding the value that you bring to the table. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, right? When you're negotiating and the value is not seen as valuable, you have to be confident in who you are as a person, but also what you bring culturally to the table that can add so much color and so much vibrancy and just make things different. Biodiversity is important in nature. It's also important in business.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting because Ricardo has a very diverse background, cultural background as well. And we may take it for granted because we see Ricardo all the time because he's our chairman. But Ricardo, tell us a little bit about just your experience, refresh our memory in terms of your experience with cross-cultural negotiations and just any lessons that come to mind as Ife kind of sets sets us up for understanding the value that we bring to these types of communications or interactions.
Yeah, no, thanks. I think to Ife's point too, like, I am also global. Like I was manufactured in Jamaica, with some Cuban and Jamaican components, and I got shipped. I lived in Colombia. I lived in the Bahamas. I've been in several parts of the Caribbean doing work. I've got teams out in India, in South America, all the way down to Brazil. It's crazy how global this thing is, and how it feels now that you've had so many repetitions. It's just easy to be able to do these things, right? And being in those spaces yourself, it gives you a very, very good and deeper understanding of what it is to be cross culture. And I give you an example. Like this morning, I was reading an email from my team, and one of my teammate had a problem with the other teammate, right? One is from South Africa, one is from India, but he's actually in California, and he said something, and she interpreted it a very, very, in a very different way. And it's like, just her exposure to sort of the cultural nuances alone was sort of created this sort of emotion into her. So that's very, very interesting, that as you think about this idea of cross cultures, really, really making sure that you position yourself to understand the other person, right? Because a lot of times it's not us bringing our culture into their world. It's really making sure that we adjust to their culture when we're actually in their world. So there is some middle ground that we have to find there, because that creates ease for negotiation, that creates ease for the conversation.
I like that.
Right? And sometimes people just want to keep it good. Yeah.
I like that a lot. Creating ease, setting yourself up for success. Ife, so if I'm coming into a situation feeling empowered, valuing myself, and the other person is feeling empowered and valuing themselves, and there's differences, across, what is valuable, across nationalities, professional hierarchy, gender. How does like power dynamics show up, in your experience in these types of negotiations and communication in general? How does power dynamics show up, and how do you deal with that when you're trying to kind of strike that ease and that balance between the value that I'm bringing and the empowerment that I'm bringing and the empowerment that the other person is bringing?
That's a very good question, Dawn, and thank you so much for that. In my career, I've worked with people all over the world, similar to Ricardo. And sometimes I'm either the only person of color in the room or the only female in the room, or at times both. The only female person of color. And in some rooms, that may be seen as a disadvantage from their perspective, right? So they see me as a charity case or a tick off of a box. Okay, we have the right people in the room. We're here. I'm sorry. I have other things going on in the home. They're picking up my voice, and I'm like, I'm not talking to you right now. Sorry about that. So long story short, when it comes to the power dynamics, I think it's very important to listen to respond, not to react. So really hear what people are saying and hear what they're not saying. Understanding body language is a real giveaway. I watch everything. I observe everything. And so in the rooms where there's a disproportionate or where there's a power dynamic where I am trying to understand what's happening in the room, I listen. Because the most powerful person in the room is the best listener, I found. Not necessarily the best talker. Now, I could talk from here to kingdom come. But if there is a dynamic where I'm trying to understand where are these people coming from, they're different, they see me different, they may not understand fully. So they're empowered, but they're empowered from their perspective. I'm empowered from my perspective. To Ricardo's point, where's that middle ground? What is it that they actually want? Is there a win-win option here? How do we work towards that? And I found that comes through listening and listening very intently. And so I would literally ask questions like, okay, this is what I heard. Am I accurate? Is this what you mean to say? Much of cultural discussions and power dynamics is all about diplomacy. So finding the art of being diplomatic in your communication is key. And at the basis of that is really understanding what they're saying. Of course, you're going to do your due diligence, you're going to do your homework, you're going to understand who they are, you're going to go through their LinkedIn profile, you're going to go ahead and better understand those kinds of things. But honestly, when you're in that negotiating room, being able to listen is gold.
I like that. So listening, body language, middle ground is kind of what's resonating with me. What else, Ricardo? And this is interesting because both of you have such exude so much confidence, very strong, presence. What else comes to mind, Ricardo, from your perspective that we should be aware of? Even if we recognize, some of these things, that Ife brings up around body language, if there's there is no comfort or there's a lack of ease, like how do what are some things that we should be aware of or things that we can do to kind of move it forward and find that middle ground?
Yeah, I think sometimes when you think about and to Aoife's point, these sort of power dynamics and they can emerge subtly, right? And so for those folks who maybe they've been given the floor, and their expertise is questioned and ideas are also assumed, there's certain weight that the leaders in the room or the folks in the room carry, right? And so I think for us, especially as an African American or as a Black business owner, sometimes we can feel like just navigating sort of some hidden, if you may, like hierarchy, right? Like you're not sure when to say something or who gets to speak and be heard, and so this inclusion is important, and this inclusion has to be intentional. So how do we integrate into this sort of conversation, especially negotiation, because you get in there, you're seen as the expert and people are actually looking forward to hearing from you as well. But just a simple shift, for example, like sort of rebalancing, like if you're in a meeting room, how do you rebalance that sort of seating arrangement, or just kind of affirm sort of some, the contributions for, that are been overlooked in terms of teams. So you might have other team members in there, or it may just be you, but just making sure that you can take some of these rebalancing effort to ensure that that can help with tone. It can help with certain outcome as you progress into this whole idea of that negotiation piece and so forth.
Yeah, and I'm thinking what comes to mind too is the word humility, is coming to mind, the self-awareness and humility, and to be able to even like utilize and be aware of some of these things that you all are pointing out or bringing to the forefront. You have to have a level of self-awareness and also humility in not only honoring your presence and your position in the room, but also honoring others' presence in the room. And I know from experience that that doesn't always happen. When you feel as though, or even I'll go beyond feeling, because when you observe, when you observe that there is some bias or others may not see your value, you perceive that there is a lack of understanding of the value that you bring to the room. Ife, how do you respond to that? What do you do with that emotion? You talked about emotion earlier. When you can feel and beyond feel, you observe that there is a lack of understanding to the value that you bring to the conversation in that negotiation. What do you do with that?
That's a very good question. I will give you two clear examples. So I served as a supervisory board member for the Chamber of Commerce for 6 years. And that is a position that you're elected into by the constituents of the chamber. And it's a little bit different in the islands. And my first year and the first meeting, I had a former board member who immediately asked me to get him a cup of coffee. Now, that's not a problem under normal circumstances, but I did not want to set the tone that as the female and out of the new two female board members, that my role there is to serve you a cup of coffee, right? That was not the message I wanted to start out with. I like to say that I am decorative, but I'm also very functional, and I like to be functional in different kinds of positions. So I went ahead and I got my colleague, a female, her cup of coffee because she asked, and I sat down and he looked at me and he went directly to the coffee corner. And I said, with a big smile, I would love to have mine with milk and 2 sugars. And so he brought a cup of coffee for me for milk and 2 sugars. Now, since then, we laugh about it all the time, but he just had this innate bias that as a female in the room, that would have been my role, versus understanding that I earned the same seat that he's sitting on by being voted into that position, right? And so I think it comes down to, so that's one clear example of when people don't always see your value because of their own biases. Another has been where I'm in the room and we're talking about different things. And again, I'm listening to see where we're at. And they didn't see the kind of value that island people in general could bring to the table. So that's why I started out by saying, it is important to understand your own value, 1. But 2, value is not just how you value you, it's how other people value you. And that's where the listening comes in and active listening comes in. So when I noticed, okay, this is coming from the perspective of me being an islander versus me being a global citizen, I started to speak in global citizenship terms and use different kinds of language versus just focusing on the island. And that allowed us to move forward because they saw a bigger picture. It was not just, oh, it's 16 square miles of a part of a rock or 37 square miles of an entire rock. They saw it as islands are 11% of the entire globe and constitute X amount of people, and now we could have a different kinds of discussion. Or the Caribbean is 44 million people, of which X amount people are in business, then we could have a different kind of discussion. You understand what I'm saying? So hearing the numbers, understanding what people are listening for allows you to speak the language that would allow them to see the value. Because sometimes they can't appreciate something if they, I'm thinking way too fast that I want to speak here this morning, but what I'm trying to say is also, there's a scripture that says you don't pour your pearls before swine. Why? Because swine can't appreciate pearls. And that's not to be insulting to call anybody swine, but if you don't have the sensory capacity to appreciate what's in front, then now we have to look at how do we get you to see the value from your perspective, and then we can push the needle forward. You're playing chess at all times, not checkers.
This is huge, and we're almost at the top of the hour. When we're going to turn it over to Ricardo in just a second, before we shift into like the negotiation. But this piece I think is very, very important because I want to kind of kick it back to you one more time before I shift over to Ricardo, Ife. Because you bring up a good point about like the necessity of educating
yes,
for your counterparts to improve their understanding of the value. And that is a big load to carry, I think, in international negotiation, but it's absolutely necessary because that's the that's the nature of international negotiations.
yes.
There is, cross-cultural communication, differences in understanding and context, that the business that we're trying to get the business done, that's going to influence the negotiation tactics, right? So we have to do a certain amount of really extra legwork. It's extra work if you do global business to really educate them But when do you walk away? Like, how much
Mm.
educating do you do? Like, what's that, going back to Ricardo's point earlier about that middle ground? How much educating do you do before you say, you know what, I'm going to walk away? And then I want Ricardo to answer that same question. Like, how much educating do you do?
That's a very good question. So let me track back a little bit. Part of the due diligence is also building international relationships. Like I said, the relationship is the real currency. So you can actually ask people in your network, what are these people looking for? What is interesting to them? What do they value? You don't have to do mind reading. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just what's on paper, because a lot of what's on paper is already historic information. You're really wanting to understand who are these people and what do they value. So for example, when we work with the US government and US State Department, what was valuable in the previous administration is not valuable in this administration. And so we're looking at it from the perspective of what is valuable for them. They want to hear tech, they want to hear business, and they want to hear that there's economic growth and that kind of a thing. We can't talk about DEI or anything of that nature in this current administration because of the climate, right? So really understanding who your stakeholders are and people that you can WhatsApp, phone call, get in contact with quickly will help you a lot with that whole legwork issue. As to the question about when do you walk away, when it affects your personal values. If you have strong personal values and we are not value aligned at the core, yeah, I'm walking away. I don't care what kind of money is on the table. So if, for example, I do some youth projects as well, as you know. So if it is a alcoholic company that wants to do some major advertising to the youth, I'm not doing it. I don't care. It's against my values. If it is something that is detrimental to women, it's against my values. If it is something that has to do with child labor, it's against my values. If it has to do with just a complete lack of integrity, you know that they're negotiating and then you find out that they're like backhandling all kinds of things in the background and trying to cut you out. Why am I there? If it affects my peace, my joy, my health, that is more important to me than the money on the table. And so that's when I absolutely walk away. And literally, I've had to do this more than once and say, you know what, I appreciate the opportunity. I don't believe I'm the correct service provider for you. I don't think that this is going to be mutually beneficial. And so I appreciate, the efforts, and I walk away.
I love that. I love that. Alignment has been like my mantra all 2025. I said coming into 2025 that it's going to be a really big focus for me, alignment, making sure there's an alignment of values with those that I'm looking to do business with. And then also that relationship piece, which I want to hand it over to Ricardo, which I think is the kind of the cornerstone of the negotiation that we'll talk about in the latter part of the discussion. Something that sticks to mind that I always say was a quote from a book I read, Crucial Conversations, a while ago. The conversation is the relationship is the conversation. And many times, when you're able to, that authenticity, the transparency, the alignment shows up in the dialogue, in the conversation, which is a good indicator for how you can approach the negotiation, and even if the negotiation will be successful. Ricardo, before you kind of go into the poll and things, just kind of speak to that relationship piece, set us up for when we come back, how that relationship is the cornerstone for setting up the negotiation.
Yeah, no, thanks, Doug. I think, and Ife is right. I wanted to just touch on a couple of things that you addressed earlier, just to add to Ife's point. Calmness, I think, is a tool. I think it's a powerful tool in terms of leadership, and it's really an influence, especially when you're in certain negotiations, high stake, etc. You just sort of, how do you maintain that sort of grounded tone and demeanor, right? Not being defensive or anything like that, even if you're provoked, right? Because this this can also help other people to mirror that energy, and that can open them up for dialogue. So I think that's important to understand, because these cultural expressions sometimes for emotions, these cultural expressions in terms of emotions, they can sometimes bring out certain things in other people. So what may appear as anger in one culture, right? It might be like something passionate or just something that people want to emphasize. So that study is important. That homework that Ife talks about, it's also very important. And then the other piece I'll say is, just as you think about, results, like let that result speaks for itself, because a lot of times when you're in sort of a room and you're sensing sort of bias and whatever it's based on, you don't necessarily need to rush to call it out. But if you can counter it with clarity, if you can counter it with credibility, especially if you have others with you that you can speak to, just really sort of having that data, having that strong case study, I think it helps to shift those perceptions really, really quickly. And that's where those relationships come in, right? And that's where those relationships are key, because then it's kind of like how you pick up the phone, like, hey, I'm actually in town and I see, for example, some of my key people here I've got respect for, like Simo, and I don't mean to call Simo out, but Simo is an amazing leader that I have a lot of respect for, and we have a relationship. And so I feel very comfortable if I'm going into a space, London, or if I'm going into SA, I can holler at Simo and say, listen, this is what the situation is. This is what I'm going to be dealing with. And he may have some light years ahead of me in terms of just experience and sort of how do you actually manage certain things. And that is an example of how those relationships are valuable, right? Because there's always someone. Is like, the first thing for me is, who do I know on the ground that I can actually give a heads up? And what do I not know? That's the question I'm asking. Like, what is it that I don't know that I need to know? And that actually does help in positioning you. So the relationship is key to have those handy when you need them.
I'm learning so much. I'm learning so much. So do you want to go ahead and go into the poll or the spotlight?
Yeah, so I haven't seen anyone reach out to me to be spotlighted yet, but I'm still waiting for you all. If you're interested in speaking out, that's how relationship gets built, right? You've got to put a foot. But in the meantime, until we wait for you, I've got a poll. We've just got one question of the week that would love for you to answer. So I'm going to launch the poll, and it's essentially asking, when it comes to doing business internationally, sort of, where are you? Are you slowing down? Are you speeding up? Or are you like, I'm just going to wait on the sideline. I'm just going to kind of be neutral about, like, hey, I'm not even sure where I'm at. I probably need to talk to somebody. Like, where are you in that regard? So please feel free to take the poll. Would just love to check your temperature on that front. And yeah, so while people are doing that, Doc, I think you can go ahead and touch on your other segment while we wait for folks who want to be spotlighted.
Yeah, so this is, I don't know about you all, but I'm learning so much, as I always do when I'm in the presence of these two. And so many things are coming to mind just in thinking about the interactions that I've had with these two, and also just, some of the global interactions and relationships I've been building like over the few years as I work to grow my company. Let's get into negotiation. So, Ife, how do you prepare? Like, prepare us, walk us through your ritual, your setup, your steps, your tactics, your strategies for preparing for a negotiation, and what makes a negotiation successful?
I'll start with the latter part of your question first. Win-win. That makes it successful to me. So I'm not looking for me to just win. I want to make sure that I'm adding value to the person that I'm in negotiation with. And so if we can walk away with a win-win, then that's a huge win. And that's the only win that I actually want. So that's the focus. If I don't get there, to your previous question, that might also be a sign that it's not right now. So we'll put a pause on it, and then we'll walk away and come back when the time is right, where there could be a real win-win for everybody at the table, right? That being said, doing the homework, and doing the legwork, and also doing the positioning of yourself. People want to do business with people that they trust and like. And so you have to be, one, trustworthy and likable, but that also has, to Ricardo's earlier point, social proof. What does your digital footprint look like, especially in the international realm? That is critical. Your website, your LinkedIn, particularly your social media. If you have anything about you speaking at anything, if you have any trainings, what does that look like? You have to build the case. Whether you have the relationships or not, you need to build the case of why they're going to choose you. Because right now, you're not in competition with other people, you're just in competition with attention. And so whoever has the most attention gets the most attention. You know what I mean? So that being said, that is really important. Making sure that you have positioned yourself in such a way that people can trust you and like you. And then, of course, that you're integral with that trust and like, and that you're authentic to what you say that you can do and all of that. So that's number one. Number two, to Ricardo's point, I start to ask questions. Who am I negotiating with? What is it that they want? What is valuable to them? Can I provide that? What do I know? What do I don't know? And who do I need to know? Right? And then the other one, which is really critical, this is a game changer, that when I started asking that question, it changed the game for me. Who needs to know me? Because who I know may not necessarily be the decision maker, they're a gatekeeper. And it's important to have really good relationships with the gatekeepers, because they will open the floodgates of heaven for you if they like and trust you, right? So we've all had that encounter with the assistant that says, no, they're booked, they're booked, they're booked, they're booked. And then, and then you go out with them and say, hey, I'd like to know more about you and what you do. And like authentically, not strategically only, but authentically wanting to know more about this person. And then you call them back again and be like, listen, I'm gonna do you a favor. I'm gonna switch around something for you. And then you have 15 minutes. That is why relationships is also important. But on the flip side of that, who needs to know you? Who is a decision maker that can call you and vouch for you in rooms that you don't have access to yet? So that is really important. So what's the project? What's valuable to the person? What do I know? What do I don't know? Who do I need to know? And who needs to know me? Those are 6 questions that I typically ask. And then that will also inform how the negotiation is going to go. So that will let me know, do I need to get partnerships for this? Because they value the fact that this is something that's global, and so they want me to showcase global. So do I need to bring in Dawn and Ricardo with their skill set, because I don't have that specific skill set, and present it as a collaborative initiative to be able to get more money and more access, right? Those are the building blocks, I would say, or the foundational pillars of proper negotiation from my experience. And then from there, you can go into, okay, what happens when you give an offer? How do you counter offer? Like I said, the one that listens the most and is calm, as Ricardo says, but also listen, let me tell you guys, you know what's a real game changer? Silence. People don't like silence. So if you're silent for too long, they start giving you what you want, because they're like, oh, this is not going how I thought it was going to go, especially if they value you. Silence, even walking away is a strategic move. If you feel like, you know what, you're undervaluing me, this isn't right. I've had that done recently. I set a number. It was the lowest number that I could provide that I felt would be honorable for the project. They were like, no, it's too much. I walked away. They called me back a week later. Listen, we made things work. We shifted around things in the budget. We really want you because you're the go-to person for this. You're in, and I'm getting the same number. You know what I mean? So these are things that are after those building blocks, but that's when you have proper building blocks for the negotiation.
Oh yeah, now that's a jewel drop right there. The proper, you gotta have the foundation needs to be set. You know, that's what I'm hearing. Like if you, the foundation needs to be set for the negotiation to be successful. Basically, that's probably like 60 or 70% of the negotiation. It's setting the foundation. Do you always take the first offer when someone's offered? Do you always counter offer, Ife, when someone offers you something?
That's a good question. Depends. So going to relationship, if the relationship is more valuable to me, then if it's not transactional, I may do the first offer because I value that relationship. So if you're offering me something, Dawn, we have a relationship, right? So it's done. We'll work this out. We'll make money on the back end. We'll do whatever, it's done. But for the people that are not done, people that I don't have that kind of relationship with, let's look at the numbers. Sometimes I'm surprised. Sometimes people value me more than I value myself. And so then I'm like, oh, I didn't know that you saw this number. I'm not going to let them know that, obviously. And then I take the first number. I'm like, but I delay a little bit just to let them feel that I thought about it. When I got really excited about it. Because to Ricardo's point, calmness and being able to be emotionally regulated and stable is very key, oftentimes. And I have also, and with that being said, it's okay to be passionate if people understand where your passion is coming from, right? So people can misread passion for anger or passion for disrespect. But if you're letting them know, this is why I'm passionate about this because I care about island-based people, because we have been displaced, because we are at the forefront of climate change. And if they don't have digital businesses and access to global markets, we have an existential threat. And that's why I'm so passionate about this. Then that can also be very convincing in the negotiation, because it's not, oh, she wants the money. This is a mission for her, and she's going to do everything she needs to do in order to get this thing done. And so people want to trust that, and money is not always a great motivator.
That's so key. That's so key. Oh, so much there. Do you are you ever insulted by an offer? Like, because both of you, before I switch back over to Ricardo, there's a lot of different things that can show up in terms of emotion, but depending on the culture and the context, it could be, read differently. Are you ever insulted by an offer? And if you are insulted, like, what do you do with that?
The answer to that is yes, ma'am. I have been insulted more than once about an offer. And going back to due diligence, I was contacted a few years ago to be a keynote for a big company here, and they were bringing people in from all over, about like 400 employees from all over. And the year before, they spent upward of $10,000 for speakers' fees, flight, hotel, all of that. And so I didn't charge that kind of money. I went a lot less because I'm local, right? But they came back with a $75 offer. So I'm like, I can't buy shoes. I can't do makeup. I can't even, like, what am I going to do with $75? So I was very much insulted at that time. And one, I had to emotionally regulate, because it's never good to communicate when you're upset, right? I don't even like to put things in draft anymore for an email. I tend to put it in Word so I can't accidentally send it. And then I copy paste it over. Never a good way to do anything. And I'm also very careful of tone, and tone is felt. So you want to make sure that the tone also is not biting and all of that kind of stuff when you're writing. But what I did do was give them advice and show my professionalism. So to your direct question, I said, you know what, based on this kind of a budget, you have leaders within your organization that are Toastmasters speakers. I would recommend that you have one of them do this. And at a later stage, if you have more budget, I'm willing to discuss how we can move further in this regard. And, should you need more advice on how to do this, that, I'm available for a call. That kind of a thing.
This is good. Okay, so set the foundation. You got to know the market. Depending on the type of relationship, might determine like how you counter. What would you add to this, Ricardo? Some of the strategies in the setup for successful negotiation. What would you add to this?
Yeah, no, thanks. I've got I see we've got two members we want to spotlight, Doc. So if we get a moment to we want to do that. But I had a recent experience where I'm just doing a negotiation around the table, and there's consensus, right? So there's me and they're the parties, and they need this sort of so you could see this emotion, and it's like, okay, you need to allow it. So let that actually play out by doing something as simple as, listen, guys, we can come back. We can come back after you've done the conversation among yourself to determine sort of where you want to take this. Not my presence in the room should not sort of impede your ability to then sort of figure out or think straight. So I could just terminate it right there and say, why don't we reconvene after you guys have sort of take your time? And it's also I'm never appearing desperate. It's also like I could leave this and I'm totally okay. And so it's totally going to be, the ball is now in your court because I just gotta go play golf. Like it's totally up to you, right? And so them feeling that it gives them this sort of like, man, we really need this. We really have to actually do it. But I want to bring up Nicholas Harvey, Dr. Harvey, because Dr. Harvey is a member and he's got some experience in this, and he wants to then share it. So I want to allow him to introduce himself, what he does. I think he's got a little bit that he might be able to add to this particular thing. So Doc, welcome. Please unmute, introduce yourself, what you do as a member spotlight, and then if you want to jumping on probably just answering one of those questions real quick.
Sure. Greetings, family. Thank you so very much, Ricardo, Dr. Don, Ife, so very much. I'm Dr. Nicholas Harvey, the Leadership and Culture Catalyst. I'm serving as Principal and CEO of Nicholas Harvey Consulting, and we support organizations to keep the best employees and clients for themselves by creating your welcoming workplace. Among our frameworks to support our clients is cultural competency and coaching. So we know that when we meet another person, we're meeting another culture. How then do we relate to others appropriately so that they can feel seen, heard, and valued? And so we'll place our contact in the chat, and I certainly look forward to connecting. Thank you all for this opportunity on today, and look forward to connecting and enjoy being a part of Global Opportunities Committee.
Yeah, no, fantastic, Doc. And maybe I should put you on the spot and just sort of, what's your response to how do you respond to a question on that piece that Doc asked around sort of, how do you actually manage this negotiation process?
Surely. So in the midst of our negotiation process, in any encounter with a potential client, we always talk about our process is. And so that type of clarity from the beginning is one that becomes very, very helpful because the final piece as we go through it is not only just talk about what are their needs, what are our capabilities, is there a match, is there a goodness of fit, but then we always co-create solutions to 100%. And so I appreciate, what Ife said about the speaking opportunity, clarity up front. When people say, well, what do you charge? Well, you can say, hey, I'm an X $1,000 speaker and I'm willing to work, with your budget. And so I just appreciated her response to saying, perhaps there's someone else, and I'm with you on putting emails in Word so you don't send anything out there. Also, I just appreciate the amount of emotional self-regulation that goes into these endeavors. So if folks do not have a practice, please find a practice where you can emotionally self-regulate, move into the energy that you want to move into so you can show up the way you want to so that you can close those deals.
Yeah, no, I guess that's why Calm, the app, is so powerful, right? Because there's always this you got to find reset. I see people putting in the chat, it's reset, regulating, it's just that tone, it's all about that. Another quick spotlight, guys, before we jump back to you, Doc. Excuse me, it's Shamika Davis is one of our GOC member. Shamika, please come on stage, introduce yourself, and tell us who you are and what you do, and potentially how does, because the business that you're in, I happen to know there's a lot of culture dynamics that happens, maybe at the rate at a much higher and faster rate than a lot of what we've actually seen because you're in the travel space. So go ahead.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Ricardo, for this opportunity to be able to be spotlighted this morning. So thank you so much for that. As Ricardo mentioned, I am Shamika Davis. I am the Chief Experience Officer of JTS Vacations, where I help busy professionals and groups plan unforgettable, culturally rich travel experiences without the stress and hassle. We also create bleisure experiences as well. So with over a decade in the industry, my focus is on excellence, personalization, as well as service that feels like luxury from start to finish. I'm excited to collaborate with the members of the GOC committee and to be a trusted travel resource so that I can share my insights as well as support global growth through curated travel. You can also, as he said, visit my website at jtsvacations.com, and I would love to be able to explore any types of ways that I can help your organization, or we can just be a resource to each other and elevate your next travel journey. And then also to answer your question, this stage is completely different. We're in a different climate right now, and as well, speaking to individuals about their experiences and what they're seeing in this travel industry, it's changing dynamically. We really have to be fluid in everything that's going on. And to elaborate on what Dr. Nicholas said, and as well as the speakers, you have to also know how to say no and to be very transparent about what the pricing and things like that are. Everyone is in a different space. And so to understand, the value here versus the value there, it can be quite blurred. The lines can be blurred. So I like to operate in black and white. And so I just look forward to speaking with each of you or anyone that, wants to go deeper into what the travel industry looks like from a perspective of business versus pleasure. I'm the person to reach out to. So thank you so much for having me come on.
Fantastic. Bleisure, she said. It's bleisure, and it's business and leisure. It's always good to take the tie off and go see some places, right? Some things. So thank you. The poll results are out, and there was an error in one of the questions on the poll, so that didn't actually count in question 2. But Doc and Ife, as we look at the results here, essentially whether people are slowing down, they're speeding up, wait and see mode, and some folks are just not sure. We've got 38% of the respondents says that they're speeding up. I guess they're listening to a lot to Warren Buffett, because they said when everybody is kind of scary, this is the time you should be greedy. So maybe that's attributing to them speeding up, right? Which is not a bad thing. And then we've got 29% not sure. So we do have some people who are really not sure what to do in this moment, and they're depending on experts like us to really help them and talk them through and walk them through. And so what I would say for those individuals is just ask for help. Ask for help and talk to some experts. Talk to somebody that or reach out to even our leaders here on GOC if you're a member, just to see how do you navigate this. I'd love to hear, Doc, what your thoughts are on some of those results that you're seeing, and potentially Ife's as well.
I kind of figured that they would be a little bit like all over the place or kind of divided or equally, because to your point, there's some different opinions on what the best approach is, and just depending on what your goals are from a business perspective, and your risk tolerance, and what maybe that you already had that was set up, and how it's impacted or not impacted just is going to determine what's going to be the best course of action for you. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah, awesome. And I think what's interesting too is that only 3% of the folks are slowing down, right? So it's very telling, and that's very fascinating, because it's you would kind of think about oh wow, maybe a lot of people are just going to kind of step back and hold off sort of stuff. Wait and see mode is at 21%. So that's very, very interesting. Ife, what's your thoughts on these results?
I'm not surprised that it's speeding up internationally, also not only because of the economic climate and the geopolitical climate that we find ourselves in, but also because of the digital transformation that's happening right now, right? And so we are in a global economy. We can't get away from that. And I think the geopolitical climate right now is highlighting that even the more, that things come from all parts of the world, even though it lands in your supermarket or on your website, right? And so being more intentional about grabbing those global opportunities that are growing, I think would be a very smart move, particularly people of color. The Global South is a huge market. It is an underserved market. It is a market that you can tap into. The Caribbean is very close to the US, for example. That's a market that you can tap into. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities that are going to come out of what's happening right now, despite all of the uncertainty.
Awesome. Doc, over to you with the final questions.
So one last question before we kind of close out with final advice or tips. What's the biggest mistake? You know, what should we avoid? What's the number one thing that you see people do in terms of demonstrating cultural competency or negotiating that is just an absolute no-no that we should avoid?
The number one thing going in that you think that you know it all, being confident. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. And some people, that line can get blurred very quickly. And knowing what you're confident in, but also being confident that you don't know everything. And so this is an opportunity for you to learn from everybody that's at the table. For example, being from the islands, we have, St. Martin is part Dutch, part French. And so oftentimes when it comes to certain kinds of projects, the powers that be invite Dutch consultants to come in, right? Or American consultants to come in. They spend 2 months learning the cultural nuances because they have no idea. And they're paid for the 2 months of consulting at premium prices versus really leveraging the talent that's there and finding ways for them to disseminate the information and have more of a collaborative thing. And then after the 2 months, they'll tell you exactly what the local experts are saying for the past 5 years. And then you go like, but we know that already. So being very sensitive that you do not know it all, being very sensitive that just because someone may communicate something in a way that may rub you the wrong way or is not to your particular proclivities, that it's not intentional to insult you. Sometimes it is, but that's very rare. Oftentimes it's just, that's how they communicate. That's how they are culturally. Island people speak with their hands, for example. I lived in the Netherlands for almost 10 years. You speak too much with your hands, it's insulting. You speak with your eyes versus your hands. And so being okay to give space for everyone to be themselves, but also making sure that you are clear that you are also of value. So I think that the number one mistake is going in thinking that you know everything versus actually being there to learn and understand so that you could find a win-win situation.
I like that. Like, that goes back to that humility piece and self-awareness. Anything to add to that, Ricardo? What's the number one thing that we should just avoid that you see that's a huge mistake in going into international negotiations?
Yeah, I think it's overcompensating, right? It's a common mistake. Either you overcompensate, either you mimic this sort of local customs, awkwardly, or just speaking in cliches, right? And so it's this whole idea of sort of true cultural competency. It's really less about imitating or imitation, and it's more about this humble curiosity and
yes,
contextual respect, if I could say that. And so this idea that don't force this local greetings or or do anything sort of outside of that invited norm. You should just focus on, like you said, Ife, you want to listen actively. Don't be the one that speaks a lot in the room. Ask informed questions, right? And just really that helps you to show that you've done some homework. Even if you have some idea as to what the answers might be, it's okay to then have those dialogue, because the truth of the matter is, especially for the jurisdiction that I've been to, respect speaks louder than performance. And I mean, I just witnessed that, for example, in Paris when I was in France. I was in Amsterdam as well, and Frankfurt and London. And it's like, it's very, very interesting how the dynamics across those four spaces, but you have these common denominators, which I think respect is one of them, because it speaks so much louder than your performance.
Wow, I feel like we could have a whole nother session on that, on that statement alone. The time it flew by.
The hour has come.
Yeah, the hour has come, as you always say. Just close us out, Ife, and then Ricardo, with any final like tips. You both have given so much. Like I knew I would learn something, as I always do, but I really am in awe how much I've been sharpened in just one hour. So thank you both so much. Any final like advice or tips that you want to leave for those that are just now exploring going into doing international business or negotiations?
Absolutely. So there's a framework, a proprietary framework that we use called the 4C framework. We like letters and numbers because it's easier to remember. And that is to, one, create or co-create. If you're going to do business globally, create something that is globally appealing. Don't niche down too much. And you'll be surprised how some niches are so global because it just speaks to people. But nonetheless, have the globe in mind, have international business in mind. So create or co-create. Connect with the right people, connect with the people on the ground, connect with the right stakeholders, be active, for example, with this particular platform, connect with people here, be intentional about connecting, collaborate, find ways to work together, partner together, do things collaboratively and have a collaborative perspective. That also helps with the negotiation because then it's an us versus you versus me. And that is much more powerful. And then look at the conversion. How is it converting in a win-win situation? If it's an impact project, what does that impact look like? Is it converting? If it's a business project, how is it converting? And then you adjust the levers accordingly. But create, connect, collaborate, and convert, the 4C framework, definitely. If anyone here wants to connect with me, they can connect with me on LinkedIn. And also, I'll put some of my information in here too. Thank you so much, Ricardo. Ricardo and I actually go way, way back, and then we had a reconnection moment, like, we know each other, doing other projects in the past. Thank you so much, Dawn. Thank you to the GOC and to Black Chambers of Commerce. It was a true honor to be here with you today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ife. You're just an absolute gem. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. Ricardo, any final words, Chairman?
Yeah, no, I want to say thank you, Ife, and she's right. We go way back. She's a powerhouse and she's doing some amazing stuff. Like, you got to connect with her because the power continues after the hour, has come. So make use of the connections that we're bringing to you. And thank you, Doc, as well, for bringing Ife back into the fold, so to speak, right? Because we haven't had this is amazing in terms of just making sure that we have this kind of discussion. And so you must be credited. You connected with Ife. You recognize how much of a gem she is, and it's hey guys, I've got something to share with you all, and now we're here. So thank you for doing that as well. And so I think you've said it all, right? I think at the end of the day, you've just got to understand, you've got to understand your why. You've got to understand the thing about negotiation. It's not just about a deal, like you said. You're negotiating a relationship, because the bridge is always going to be there for you to walk back across so don't burn it. And so you've got to be thinking about that pausation and seeking the why that's behind the norm, because again, the common denominator, right? A lot of times people will maybe show you resistance, and it's really like a safeguard. It's not like they're not being intentional. It's just really like historical or political, or there's social realities, and you've just got to understand those pieces. Like, what's the intersection of the culture and the commerce that we want to do, and you find that's sort of like a sweet spot, right? And so once you find it, I think you'll be amazing. But this was amazing, guys. This was great, and definitely looking forward to have more of these discussions, Doc.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ricardo. Thank you both. Thank you all, GOC. And I look forward to, I think I have another one more later on this year. So I can't wait to come back. It's always a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, thank everyone for coming. Make sure you do the feedback in the chat. You can save the chat if you'd love. You'd love to. Congrats to those of you who are doing some big things. I see Toria is doing some big things in Dubai. 140 people coming out to your event. I mean, whoop whoop for that, right? I'm sure a number of folks are going to be supporting you here as well. Big shout out to our folks in Dubai who's actually helping to make this possible for her. I see Mark is here as well. I'm sure you guys have been working together. So thank you guys. We appreciate it. The hour has passed, but you got the power now. Continue to spread good deed, and we'll see you next week. Same time, same place. We're going to be talking about storytelling when you are going global, because you've got to be able to tell your story, and you got to be able to sharpen that tool. How do you learn to ride a bicycle? Just ride it, right? And that's essentially what we're doing here. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.